Welcome to Duality Check, the podcast where two brothers embark on a journey through the realms of scientific inquiry, the mysteries of the past, and the uncharted frontiers of spirituality. Join us as we explore the wonders of our world and beyond, all while embracing the roles of curious bystanders rather than experts. Together we'll unravel the tapestry of existence, blending the dichotomies of knowledge and wonder. Get ready to question, ponder, and delve into the dualities that shape our understanding of reality on Duality Check. I'm Drew.
And I'm Dean, and welcome to episode number 78.
78, ooh.
I think today we're going to get back into the
Do some
alien interview.
Yeah, that's going to be good. We got some handful of things to go through, though.
Yeah,
Quick comments.
Yeah, I also had a comments. Oh yeah, we did get a couple emails.
We had a few.
Did you see those?
I didn't see the emails, but I saw because my email wasn't up yet. But
there was some comments on the
YouTube. Yeah,
I didn't see those myself. Let me see if I can pull it up here.
Yeah, if you get them up, that'd be good. Back to me. There we go.
Let me see. Go to our channel.
I think one of them was at least a insider.
An insider?
Somebody who knows G-Man, I think.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
You go. There's a couple more that I'm not seeing there.
Yeah, there's
if
more.
You go to, I haven't responded. Yeah, unclick that. There you go.
Oh wow! Look at all this. Okay.
So yeah, Greg. This was after his email and his previous comment to us. He said, "Hi. So your theme song words are I mistook life for truth. No way." For the life of me, I was 1,000% sure it says I mistook my fortune, and still hearing it again, I hear it that way. As you know, English is not my first language, and although I have no problem understanding it, it is still a challenge to understand words in most songs. So maybe I mistook the wording in this song.
You mistook words for truth.
Are you sure it's life for truth?
I actually think it's lie for truth.
Yeah.
But because lie comes right after for, it makes the I and the F
blend
merge together. So it sounds like you're saying life.
Yeah.
I
thought life for a while too when I first heard the song, but then once I realized it was lie, I mistook lie for truth. Then I was like, I can't unhear it again. So,
but honestly, it's one of those things with music, right? Like, I don't really think there's always a right answer. And
that's true.
If you can interpret it multiple ways and it means something to you, then
who are we to tell you?
Right?
Yeah, who are we to tell you?
But either way, whether it's I mistook life for truth, that is relevant to the podcast.
That is absolutely relevant.
If it's I mistook lie for truth, that's also relevant to the podcast.
Mm-hmm. I mistook my misfortune or unfortunate. What did he say?
I mistook my fortune.
My fortune, yeah. Which is also
as I'm hearing it back in my head, I can see how you would hear it that way. So yeah, no worries, Greg. You're all good, dude.
But now listen to it again, knowing it's lie for truth.
Let's take your vote. Do you think it should be life or lie?
Yeah. Or mistook my fortune. Anyway, thanks, Greg. And then this is the person. So this is after our G-Man special, and this is from Lamar Berserkowitz,
which I'm pretty sure is G-Man.
Okay, because I thought
this dude is full of shit.
Yeah, I thought so too. It was either somebody who knew him or him.
And then Matt Main 237, that's a friend of mine. He says, Folger's Instant is great, but the Dark Instant is garbage. Yeah, I've never tried Folgers. I've just never really been a fan of Folgers. Like,
you like coffee, though?
I do like coffee. Yeah. I just don't think Folgers is among the coffees that I super enjoy.
It's actually, it's a decent, ready to go mixture. Like if you're not a snob or if you're just kind of like the avid drinker, that's just like the daily drinker. You're not too worried about all the little nuances of coffee.
Yeah.
It's a decent brew.
I mean, if I was the type who liked to like crank my coffee full of like cream and sugar, it would matter, right? But I try not to do that. I like a black cup of coffee, and to do that, for that to taste good, it needs to be good coffee.
Sure, that makes sense.
We also got from Joshua Hammond. He says, "Does Stevie Nader still make/release music?" He did release something recently. Well, recently compared to the rest of the music he's released. I don't know if he's currently working on anything. I did run into him recently, though. Turns out he was our nephew's driving instructor, just randomly.
Serendipity.
Yeah. But yeah, check out his Spotify. There is a more recent track. I think it's within the last like 4 or 5 years that I did that one with him, as opposed to like 10 plus years ago when the rest of his music came out.
Yeah, then the last one here is from our sister. Jesus is a mushroom! Exclamation. So good. Great episode, boys. Thanks, sis. She also texted us privately that message, so.
I'm trying to reply to Josh here.
Oh.
All right. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you all for the comments.
And then we also got a couple emails from Greg, too.
Okay. He's been going straight to the source.
So he sent us a recommendation to check out Randall Carlson, which I'm not sure what, like, at what point you...
I think he started watching him because of us. He said, I listened to Randall Carlson's podcast, and this man is phenomenal. I just watched his recent episode about the moon, and it's food for thought. Turns out that the moon is even stranger than we thought. But I think he probably heard about us talking to him, because it seems like he just discovered him too.
I was going to say, because we've been talking about Randall for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
Either way, tell us if that's true.
Yeah, he's got a newer Squaring the Circle podcast, which I still have barely scratched the surface of.
Me too. I've watched a couple of them, though, but it's really good. I mean, just listening to Randall talk for hours is my jam. Unfortunately,
I'm glad you found him, and there is all the Randall you can handle out there in the internet.
Turns out that the moon is even stranger.
Dude, Randall talking about the moon is fun stuff.
Yes, absolutely. His most recent, a lot of his most recent stuff has kind of touched on the moon. Like, people ask him questions, and he gets going on the moon.
Yeah.
And he was also on Jesse Michael's podcast not too long ago.
I still have yet to hear him give his like definitive thoughts on like UFOs and aliens. I've heard him comment just a little bit, but I want his complete thoughts, because it seems like every time it comes up, he's like, well, I want to get to that, but I'm kind of building up to it, but so I don't know like what he's waiting for.
I feel like he's trying to like tie it to a lot of his like stuff that he's been interested in his whole life, instead of it being like this like completely like outlandish thing that everybody is gonna like scoff at him, like saying, "Oh, I truly believe." No, he wants to find the proper evidence and like portray it in such a way that like helps, like it, or at least it makes more sense to him. Yeah, because of his like teachings and the things that he's learned throughout his time, the things that he preaches about.
Yeah, he had a talk at the Cosmic Summit this year, and then he also had a classroom day where it was another sacred geometry workshop. But that was on Monday. The workshops were on Monday, and I was back to work, so I haven't gone back and... Those are like 4-hour sessions, so...
But you can go back, they're all recorded?
They're all recorded, and I can give you the login too.
Yeah, I would like to check them out.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff on there.
Randall has so many hours of him lecturing on the internet that you can go find. Like, he's got hours and hours. There is no shortage.
Greg also sent us this titled Johanna James. Hi, sorry for being a nuisance. You are not. But I have to introduce you to Johanna James from Funny Old World channel. She's orbiting around the Lost Civilization theme and presents lots of hypotheses on her channel. She's Jimmy Corsetti's and Randall Carlson's pal, also Luke Caverns as well, and they've done some collabs together in the past. Here's a video very well surmising her work, also very intriguing.
Okay, yeah, we know about Johanna James.
Yeah,
we listened to
I don't think I've checked out this specific video.
Yeah, we watched the last Cosmic Summit, and we had been hearing about her through Randall.
Oh, this is an older one. This is from 4 years ago. Yeah, she's been doing a lot of traveling recently. Last Cosmic Summit, so these were about a year ago, these episodes of ours, where we started covering a bunch of the Cosmic Summit. She specifically gave a presentation on the BARABAR caves in India, which are the caves that were like super ultra like machine.
Oh, that's the one
polished.
you had talked about. Yeah, that's the one
they were like mirror polished and stuff.
That's right, and they had like alignments too.
Alignments,
right?
To the cardinal directions from inside of rocks, which is
like through the rocks.
Yeah,
because
these are natural rocks. Like this wasn't. These are caves dug into and like with machine precision into existing granite
bedrock.
Yeah,
which is insane.
It's nuts.
And the precision of it, and the angles, and like the resonance frequencies of them.
I'll try it. Yeah, I'll leave a link on the website to the BARABAR caves. I think the Cosmic Summit YouTube channel put out that.
I know,
but there's also a documentary. So what happened was Johanna was the narrator for a documentary about the BARABAR caves,
right?
And she learned a whole ton about them in that process, and then she took that knowledge and used that to present her Cosmic Summit presentation last year.
Right.
I don't think she was there this year. I think she's pregnant right now.
Oh, really?
I think she was home. So congrats to her.
Yeah.
Anyway, great recommendation. We do know about her already, but like right up our alley for sure.
Absolutely. I haven't seen this video either, so we'll have to go back. It seems like it was like a few years old, 4 or 5 years old.
The BARABAR?
No, the one that he recommended here.
Oh, yeah, the one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Greg.
Oh, we've been shown. Have we been? I've been on our.
I don't know what we were showing. I think we were just on our camera the whole time.
We were just on our camera the whole time. It's all good.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool. Let's hop into. I brought this. Have you heard about this Vera C. Rubin Observatory that just went online?
No. Where's this at?
Let me show you guys here. So this is in Chile, funded by U.S. National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, in Cerro Pacon in Chile. It's one of the most isolated places in the world with like the best view of the sky.
Wow.
And this thing is basically going to be taking a full image of the sky basically every 2 days. And then as the Earth rotates, and it does it every 2 days, its mission's going to last some 20 years or so.
And it's going to move up and down in the
well, to get the entire sky that observatory can see every single night, well, every 2 days. And it'll do that over and over and over for like 10 years or so. So they'll be able to find like asteroids. They'll be able to, and ultimately with the with the return images to the same parts of the sky over and over, you can use photogrammetry to like combine multiple images together to get higher resolution images. To combine exposures and whatnot.
So the longer it does it, the more high res it gets. Yeah,
eventually they'll have deeper and deeper and deeper sensitivity to farther and farther parts of space. But it's already super incredible.
Yeah.
Here, let me see. I just set up this window. Let me see if this works. Oh, there we go. So check this out.
Wow.
This is one of the images that they released so far. which is really pretty, right? But this is all the way zoomed out. Let me zoom in all the way.
Holy.
And let me go out tick by tick so you guys can see just how zoomed in this is. That thing is so cool.
That's crazy.
It's gorgeous,
and then imagine
man.
it getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
Look at these friggin' nebulas.
Wow.
It looks fake.
It does.
And then let me show you guys. Yeah, this one. Oop, this one.
You're just zooming in here.
Yeah, this is the full zoom now.
Jeez.
There's some really cool galaxies in here. Look at that.
Look at that. Wow. Another
In fact,
galaxy.
most of these dots
yeah.
that you're seeing are all galaxies.
Yeah.
And the thing hasn't been fully tuned or focused yet either.
When did it go online?
Just went online.
Look at that.
Just
look
like
at that
within a week.
aurora around that thing right there.
Yeah.
That lens
I think
flare.
this is actually a star within our galaxy.
That's why it looks so much brighter.
Yeah.
Look at that like plume off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it's like moving.
So the other thing this is good for is because it's taking a picture of the entire southern sky every night, it will be able to see changes from one night to the other.
Mm.
And because of that, it's catching asteroids and
As it's moving, solar around.
solar system bodies that we wouldn't see otherwise.
And so basically because they're so sensitive, they can pick up the changing of light as anything passes in front of these things.
Right, because if it's going to get this exact photo every day, then on one day it looks like this, and another day there's some
something
object
blocking it. Yeah.
Right. Dude, look at this right here.
That's crazy. Yeah. Insane. Look at up there though with those like really bright stars above just those two little clusters.
Yeah, right here.
With those really bright stars above them. What's going on there, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Explain
a galaxy.
that to me. I know, but what's above it there?
This is a star in our Milky Way,
So that's much closer than the object behind than the
Yeah, I think this star
it.
is a lot closer than the galaxy behind it.
But look at that, the perspective, like from our perspective, look at that.
It looks like it's behind.
Insane.
Yeah.
And imagine like seeing the sky in this much detail every night in the past.
Dude, look at this one.
Obviously not as good with our naked eye, but like imagine living back then with no lights, no light pollution whatsoever. You're living on the plains of some plain somewhere, feeding off the land, and you're seeing. Obviously, you're not seeing this zoomed in, but
Or
you're
the
seeing
Incas on the peaks of the Andes.
Yeah, at the tip of the mountain, the highest peak in the area.
Yeah.
And you're just looking up into the celestial
On a
body.
moonless night.
Oh my God! Like how life changing would that be for us to experience that on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
You go outside as like every night before you go to bed. You're just looking at it.
Oh, there's even more right down here. Scroll way down.
Jeez. Wow.
More of these galaxies. Look at this one.
Oh yeah, that's like a full-on spiral. That's pretty close.
Things.
Jeez.
Awesome.
And they're just going to get better, right?
This
Like you're
is the
saying,
other one they
over the
released.
time.
And there's so many galaxies in this one too. Look at this one. It's like look at that spiral.
Oh, that's like, what do they call it? I can't remember the name of all the different galaxy shapes.
Yeah, I forget. There's another cool one right there. Dude, these things are cool. They look like wormholes, some of these.
Uh-huh.
Or what Hollywood has us believe wormholes look like. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
Jeez.
Anyway, so this is just the beginning of Vera Rubin's life cycle and capabilities. And so expect a bunch of amazing photos coming out from it.
We'll have to keep updating y'all. on anything we comes out from this one.
This one is a ground-based telescope versus James Webb,
right? Which is space-based, yeah.
Yeah, but apparently it's got like one of the biggest mirrors ever done in a telescope.
But this is perfect. This is the perfect step we need to be starting to detect asteroids and near-Earth objects that can come in and do some damage.
Yeah.
Or even just pass by and do damage right into the solar system somewhere.
Yeah. All right, so let's do a little UFO video sharing. So this Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp released this a couple weeks ago now. Did you see this?
I don't think I did, no.
This is a video they released on their YouTube of a UFO flying through the clouds.
Okay.
Check this out. Oh, let me make sure you guys can see. There we go. Check this out. So
this is infrared.
Yeah, this is infrared. Some aircraft. We're looking down on the clouds below. And honestly, I can't even really see anything. But they're going to show us process or video number 2.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Something here. You see this?
Yeah, I do. I see it there. Yeah, the one moving steadily through the clouds.
No,
bright
this.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
That's like a shadow. It looked like a shadow to me.
And then check this.
Doesn't it look like a shadow? How it's like changing based on.
It's got like a ring around it too. It's the increased contrast version.
Some sort of energy coming off the edge there. Because it's not even.
Honestly, it's this first video. I'm not even really able to tell what's happening here.
Yeah. So that's the original video?
No, that says 3 videos. So this is video number 1. I'm not really seeing much in this one. But video 2, yeah, you think this is a thing, and maybe it is. I don't know what this is.
That's what I'm curious
about. It's this.
And then I see that, yeah.
Yeah, it's that. Pretty crazy, huh?
But the way the shape changes as it's going across, it makes it look like it's some sort of shadow.
Yeah, so I haven't watched his report on this, but let's read some of the description here.
Okay.
He says, investigative journalist, blah, 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 revealing for the first time military filmed footage of a UAP officially documented and cataloged within intelligence community investigations as disc-shaped. The UAP of unknown origin displayed abrupt movement and intelligent control with the absence of thermal propulsion signatures. Official designation of UAP was made by the United States Department of Defense. This designation is currently maintained. Date and time was 23rd November 2020. Location, reconnaissance footage indicates gives us coordinates here. Let's check this out on Google Earth.
Yeah, we'll have to play the one I brought after this.
Yeah, I saw that in the list. I put it right after this.
Is it Turkey? Where are we? Russia? China?
It's north of India.
Kazakhstan?
What's that? That's Afghanistan.
Turkmenistan?
That's Afghanistan.
Okay.
Almost on the border of Pakistan, looks like.
Okay. The mountains. So that could be that, like, what would be interesting is if it was a shadow.
Yeah.
If what we were seeing in that video was a shadow of something much higher up, and it was being picked up on infrared, that would tell you that the type of energy being off-putted from that thing is almost like a sun, or some like where it's able to, like, the infrared.
Well,
it itself is like the entire thing is like projecting, like its shadow is projecting the energy onto the ground, right?
It reminds me, if it's not a shadow, if it was the actual disc, it reminds me of what Hal Puthoff said about the gravity propulsion systems in the episodes that we covered that. Where he was saying, I think it was when we were talking about Lou Elizondo's book, and I was talking about how Hal Puthoff basically gave this whole theory of how the UFOs fly. And he, in his assessment, he thinks that essentially there's this like space-time bubble around the craft, and that because of that, it causes electromagnetic waves, including light, to like loop around and get flung out, and that can cause like a aura or a glow.
Well, and that would almost explain why we're seeing infrared, like a infrared shadow, almost.
Yeah, maybe.
Because if it's bending that light around the object, so we're not actually seeing the object at all. It's there in the video probably, but it's not being seen because the light and everything is being bent around it. So all you're seeing is the shadow of it.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting
projected. Idea. So whatever energy is being used to capture the thing, even though it's not being seen, it's being projected back onto the shadow behind it.
Yeah, so
and you're still kind of able to see that glow because it was an irregular glow around the edge. It wasn't like a standard, like a shine.
It was mostly. Was that only on the enhanced one? I don't think it was. Let's see. It was on video 3 that we saw that.
Yeah.
So this is the unmodified one.
Yeah, right.
There's definitely a glow,
but it's not even. You see.
Yeah. Interesting. What about this one that you brought?
Yeah, this is one that came by, and I thought it was super interesting. This is a pretty recent one. So the description here says this video is a green orb skipping across the sky. It was taken in Perth, Australia on May 15th, 2025 at 6:15 p.m. The person who filmed this said they don't live near an airport or aircraft carriers. The object was performing strange maneuvers while flashing green. In this video, it looks like it's leaving some kind of trail behind and almost looks like a rock skipping over water.
Okay,
let's check it out.
Looks like it's displacing clouds. I don't know why it's blinking.
But it does look like it plumes in and out. Goes behind like a house or something here. That one's standing still.
Dude, I wish people would not zoom on their phone cameras. Yeah. They don't understand that it's not.
That looked like it right there. If you go back just a
yeah,
it
looked like it was. I can't go back, but it would look like it was breaking off something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. People, if you ever see a UFO, do not zoom in with your phone. Your phone has an optical lens that can only zoom so far. Any zoom you do past that, you're just making the pixels bigger, and you're actually making it harder for everyone else to get context because they can't see everything around what you're filming.
Yeah. He's zooming in and out a bit.
This digital zoom you do by zooming in, pinching with your camera, you can do the same thing after the fact in video editing by just making the video bigger.
Right.
So you're not doing anyone a service by zooming in with your fingers when you record something.
PSA, public service announcement for anybody filming UFOs. Please do not zoom in past the 2 times.
Well, it's really useful to have the horizon line and any buildings or anything like that. Because if all you have is a dot on a gray screen,
no context.
It's just you can't verify anything about that. There's no.
So they did zoom out, and then you see the thing kind of disappear behind a house, at least. So
but
you
it's
know
only
how fast it's moving.
But it's really only the fraction of footage that's useful. Like unless you get the whole thing unedited.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's the only thing that would be really useful to prove anything.
Yeah.
As far as like characteristics.
All right.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting.
What is this?
This is we had talked about this, and then Chris Ramsey had mentioned it in one of his episodes about how like this whole like UFO like close encounters like thing had just been injected into pop culture at a certain time. And so this is an old 1988 episode of Gumby, which if you're old enough to know, hope your knees are doing okay.
Hey, that's Amy and I watched Gumby when we were little.
I did too because you guys watched it. I thought it was cool too. But Gumby was a classic. Anyway, this is the episode that was referenced in, I think, Chris Ramsey, and I believe somebody else had referenced it too, of just being like an example of it, the pop culture kind of like buzz around these things. So this is, we'll play this quick clip of his encounter.
Hey, what's going on here? We need samples of genes.
Oh, I'm not showing it to you guys. Sorry.
To develop a stronger breed of people, because on our planet, radiation damages our DNA so that we are dying off to extinction, unless we learn the secret of your vitality. We'll help you, but we need help too. What do you need? The people on Earth are suffering from many kinds of pollution. We need your advanced technology to help us develop a clean source of energy.
They went with the full, like, that's like straight out of a John Mack book, honestly. Yeah. Dang, that's cool.
This was like a pretty popular show back in the day, too.
All right, I want to just zoom through a couple more things here because we're ready for a break, and I want to spend the rest of the show on the book so we get as far as possible.
I'm down. Let's do a little long segment.
Well, you can't really zoom through this because I'll just call this out. I'll just shout out, Chris Ramsey put out a video where he interviews John Ramirez, which is I super highly recommend it.
Okay.
Definitely worth the watch.
I haven't watched it yet. I'll have to just check that one out.
And then here's just a fun thing I found. I'll leave you guys a link to. Check this thing out. This is a full tree of life using fractals so that I can continue to get more and more and more detailed. So I just want to show you this real quick. So we're fully zoomed out here. If I go to
life, all of life.
Yeah, if I click "You are here," it zooms in to show
humans,
the apes, and humans.
Whoa.
Now check this out. When I start zooming out, so looks like we're all in the sort of primates, rodents, still in mammals.
Wow.
Think we're almost done? We're not.
What?
And we're still not. Isn't that crazy?
Holy, so we're way down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But we're close to the end there on the tip of the branch?
No, because...
Where were we? I couldn't remember. Go back to you over here. And zoom out again, slow.
So there's us.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it keeps going in.
But I mean, as far as like the main branch on the out.
Oh, which branch are we on when we come out? I mean, we're way, way, way down in there.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
I'm going to spend some time looking at this. This is...
Yeah,
trippy.
And you can search for species. There's different tours. Like, it's pretty cool. It's a cool way to, like, learn about how all of life is connected, or, like, how it's theorized that it's connected anyway.
Sure.
Cool. And then
this is
brought
fun.
This
is a fun theory, and this will get us thinking before we go to break here.
All right, let's check this out.
I just rewatched Interstellar, and I noticed what seemed like a mistake. I just cannot unsee this. So the same footage is being used twice in completely different contexts. First, right in the beginning, when Cooper has his crash dream sequence. Look at this. Remember this footage. And then, about an hour something into the movie, when they're entering Miller's planet's atmosphere, it's the exact same footage. And at first I thought this was a simple mistake, but then I realized this is Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan wouldn't reuse the same footage without a purpose, right? Like, it just didn't make sense until I looked at it from another perspective. This is the opening scene, and we see a crash in which that person inside that crash realistically should have died. So what if that's what actually happened? What if Cooper actually died in that accident right in the beginning of the movie? And I usually dismiss these Cooper is dead theories, but I continued watching the movie with this theory in my mind, and oh boy, does it change everything. So he dies, and then everything we see from there is his journey into the afterlife. He can't stay on Earth and has to leave. The Lazarus mission hints at Cooper's death and his journey into the unknown. On the Endurance, the crew always refers to the big sleep, which is a clear metaphor of death. Then the dialogue, the words his kids speak, they sound so much like private thoughts that a person would have about their parent who suffered an untimely, accidental death. When Cooper is in front of Gargantua, Tars tells him,
"See you on the other side, Coop."
"See you there, Slick!" Look, the man tells Cooper right before you die, you see your children. And after Cooper crosses Gargantua's event horizon, symbolizing the final transition, he sees Murph in the Tesseract. And when Murph is on her deathbed, he is there to greet her on the other side. I always thought it was so weird when he entered the room full of people that no one seems to notice or even acknowledge Cooper. It's almost like he's a ghost. And that's the thing about these Nolan movies. They make sense in so many different layers. You can peel off the layer of science and it still makes sense in science. And you can peel off the same scene philosophically and it also makes sense. And then you apply the same thing spiritually and it also makes sense. I just can't unsee this.
I was pretty skeptical when he started that, but that's really
when you actually like think about all the scenes and like all the different like metaphors and like different like ways to think about the different scenes and like the Lazarus mission and like the journey into the unknown and leaving Earth and how abrupt it seemed, if you did die in that, like the whole sequence of like going out and trying to save humanity is like kind of like the ultimate goal. Yeah. And then you go through all these different steps, like even like in the Egyptian like field of reeds where they go through and what's the underworld called in Egypt? There's a name for it. I'll have to remember later. But
so the theory is that he died as a test pilot early on, like before the movie started, basically like right when like the timing of when he died was right around when the movie starts. Yeah. Because even that first like action scene where they're chasing down that drone and stuff, like it shows that he's like actively, like he probably not too long before was a pilot before they started reverting to their like, survival mode. And he was testing the newest stuff, which was basically the stuff that he ended up flying later on. Yeah. In the mission. I don't know. I think it's interesting, but I think it's a little bit of a forced metaphor because there's so much detail that doesn't seem to map. Like, what about all the dialogue he has with everyone? Like, what is that all about then? The dialogue with his kids before he leaves, If he's already dead, then he can't talk to him. So,
if you
like,
think
what's happening in that moment?
Well, that could be them talking to him before, like, you know, as they were saying goodbye to him, you know?
Sure.
Maybe it was like, it could be potentially like him testing the planes, you know, after that first scene where he leaves them to go and finally do the mission. What if they were testing the different aircraft that they were going to use there, and that was the scene, so it was foreshadowing for an early scene where he's testing out and he dies, and then the team there tells his kids, and they're like, why did you have to do this, you know? And it's kind of like, and then Murph is still drawn in to do the things that Murph does.
Well, the other thing that I don't necessarily get, because I don't know when he was a test pilot. Like, I think his test pilot years may have even been before he had children.
Yeah, well, maybe. Probably.
So, in which case, if he died as a test pilot still, then he wouldn't have had children. So, maybe it's saying that he actually died later on when he is flying that thing into that planet. But
that could be. But, well, what I'm thinking is, so the idea of the Lazarus mission, like, I'm saying, like, he died after the opening scenes where he leaves his kids and goes and, like, because there's like an obvious time jump between when he leaves his kids to go and, like, do the mission and when they actually leave to do the mission.
Right.
Like, even though Murph had been coming with him in the beginning, like, there was probably some time, like, probably some months in between where he was testing things for them.
He agrees to go, and they skip past any training, anything like that. And
so maybe during that time, he was testing out new aircraft that they were going to use in, you know, that they used to go to the different planets. They probably were able to test it in, you know, at Earth, and he somehow crashed it.
Yeah, I don't know. The more I think about it, the less
but you can also say, like, because his idea of, like, Christopher Nolan having different layers, maybe this isn't the main layer, but it's a side layer. It's like one of those layers where you can just draw the meaning from. No,
it's fun that it's all set up in a way that you can interpret it that way. Just like, you know, just like we were talking about with music. And I think film is very much that way when it's done right.
Yep.
Is that you can pull different interpretations.
I think Christopher Nolan does do a good job of that, though.
For sure.
In a lot of his movies. So
even though he goes a little too far.
The main you know, draw of the movie is not this theory, but this is like a secondary third. Like, this is what keeps you watching those movies, because you can continue to, like, evolve your,
because you can have a revelation about it freaking decade after it came out. Right.
When this movie came out, me and my friends all saw it, and then we were just sitting around token and, like, hanging out and, like, talking about what happened and what actually was real. Same thing with, like, Inception.
Yeah.
You know, we're sitting around talking about the different theories of, you know, why he's actually in a dream or why he's not actually in a dream at the end, you know. It's good movies.
So yeah, I love movies that just, like, lead the conversation that way.
Yeah. And you want to rewatch it because it's just enjoyable to, like, to have a thought about it and then want to rewatch it and see if it makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take our first break here. We're 45 minutes in. So.
All right. We'll see y'all in a little bit. Enjoy some music by Soul Food.
Yeah. I got a date with destiny, but I'm flirting with greatness. Between us, jealousy and hope trying to save us. In love with my dreams, so I sleep with her often. In search of peace and beats to get lost in it. Proceed with caution, this life could be rough. Be your enemy or best friend and switch back up. But I keep my eyes open and my heart on my sleeve. I wear it proudly, that's a part of my steez. And if you ever call, I'll be there in the breeze. Just tell me what it is and I'll give you what you need. And I'll come running just to see you again. If you ever need a friend, just know you can call on me. Now follow me along, don't be alarmed, don't hesitate. This world is ours, make no mistakes, but we don't gotta stay. I wonder would you care at all if I called your name? I know this game ain't fair, but I gotta play. I know it can be so hard, I know it can be so tough. Just cause we're over now don't mean we had enough. I don't wanna leave you chances I must take can either take me higher or lose you by mistake. It's the price I gotta pay for this life that I chase. From this mic and this page to the lights and the stage. And suffice it to say, I'm in love with my dreams. Do I choose it over love or fight for my queen? It's the life of a dreamer and I'm right in between. Whether right or it's wrong, got the right to be me. So tonight let's let it be and pretend I never leave you. Treat you as my equal, cause that's how I see you. I need you more so than ever, never before. Let's play it out, since we hit a chord. It's instrumental, of course, you're the one. But these drums got me wondering who's still with me when the music stops playing. I know it can be so hard, I know it can be so tough. Just cause we're over now don't mean we had enough. I don't wanna leave you, yeah. Oh, but I just can't stay. Would you come back to me? Yo, if I called your name, would you feel the same if we switch position? This language that we speak is so strange, yet we play like this flame will never go out. It's my time more than ever, but I can't go now. I can't, but I must, and I'll take the blame for it. I'm lost in the love, and I feel the pain for it. It's the same story again, and I'm sorry to say it's part of the game. This heartache and pains, but what's it worth to gain to lose you over the fame? Now would it be the same if I left and came back? Can we be again? I know it feels so cold, but just hold on for a minute. We got a long way to go, this is just the beginning. The pain is just too real without you here. Even though we're apart, you held me down from the start. I know you're always near, I know you're always here. Yeah. Holding down my heart, I know it can be so hard, I know it can be so tough. Just cause we're over now don't mean we had enough. I don't wanna leave you, oh, but I just can't stay. Would you come back to me if I called your name? If I called your name, if I called your
Welcome back.
All right. Who did the drums on that one? Do you remember?
Yeah, so that song we collaborated with some friends of ours. They were one of our first clients. They were called Thomas and Plecker at the time.
So
they did
Sam-
sort of like jazzy stuff.
Sam was the one on the drums then?
No, Sam played guitar. It was Nolan on the drums
Nolan.
and Derek singing.
I thought Sam was a drummer, no?
Nolan was the drummer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sam was the guitarist. He had some super nice jazzy guitar tones, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, good song.
Yeah, I like that song.
Yeah, that was a fun one because they came in the studio and were like, so we want to do a song with you guys and we want to like have you guys play during the choruses like unedited, but then like we want to sample the playing to make the verses.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we actually sampled Sam's guitar to make the verse parts, but then Nolan went back and played drums through the whole
Over
thing.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, because the drums were pretty consistent, and I liked the way it flowed through the whole thing when everything else was kind of mixing it up
Yeah.
a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right, shall we get back into Alien
go.
Interview? So where we left off, we got through chapter 6, and we went through a few chapters last time. And if you recall, Airl had basically given Matilda an out-of-body experience after Matilda teaches her English, right?
Right. She teaches her about her human past and her past, and
She
like
reads
her,
all about,
her nature and stuff. Her like her, you know.
Yeah, then Airl starts teaching her, and one of the first things she does is explain that she's in something called an ISB.
Yeah.
And then demonstrates that to Matilda by taking her out of her body. And she said she was like floating up, looking at her body. And then she had the realization that she isn't her body.
That's right. She said, "Be above your body."
Right.
And then she realized quickly that she was looking at herself and Airl from above.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which gave her the instant sensation of, this is not who I am.
Right.
This is a figment, of my existence.
And then Airl went on to explain that her body is more of a doll, and that she can basically her spiritual essence is what powers and drives the body, but that it's not a biological entity, and they can kind of come and go from them as they please.
Right. Which we had speculated a bunch about, like the ability of like how cool would that be to just have bodies all over the place and just be able to log in. It's like a video game, right?
Right.
You have, like, if you think about all the video games you have in your library, and then you can click on any of them, you have a different character in a different universe in a different area of the, gaming realm.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same idea. You can just pick and choose where you want to pick up based on what you need to be doing.
Airl also talked about her civilization called the Domain, right?
Right.
And how they were expanding into this area.
With control, that are using their control and like power to like...
Yeah, they made this weird analogy to like the European powers expanding into the Americas.
Right.
And then she talked about how they use the asteroid belt mostly in our solar system as like a stop-off station as they go into the galaxy.
Didn't she mention how the asteroid belt was it her? I think it was her that she mentioned that the asteroid belt used to be a planet.
Yeah.
And that had also been a recent Y-Files episode about a planet that had inhabited the region of where the asteroid belt is, and how Mars was actually a moon of that planet.
Yeah.
And how it affected all the other planets in our solar. Anyway, that
was
it's just
the one
interesting
where
how it's like kind of like synchronicities, right?
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, so in this chapter, it's called A Lesson in Ancient History.
Hell yeah, I'm in.
So we're back at Matilda O'Donnell McElroy's personal notes. My instruction with Airl continued through the night until dawn of the next morning. I must say that I was fascinated, skeptical, shocked, alarmed, dismayed, and disgruntled by the lesson I was getting from Airl. I could never have imagined any of what she was telling me, not even in my wildest dreams and nightmares. The next afternoon, after I had slept, showered, and eaten, I was debriefed about my interview session the previous evening by members of the gallery who recorded my account of what Airl told me. There was a stenographer present for this session, as usual, to whom I debriefed after each interview. And there were also 6 or 7 men who asked for clarification on my statements. As always, there was constant pressure applied to me to use my influence with Airl to persuade her to answer specific questions prompted by members of the gallery. I did my best to reassure everyone that I would give my very, very best efforts to do so. Nevertheless, only 3 things happened every day thereafter. 1, Airl resolutely refused to answer any questions that she sensed had been posed by or suggested to me by the gallery. Number 2, Airl continued to instruct me in the subject matter of her own choice. Number 3, every evening after my interview with or instruction from Airl, she would give me a new list of subject matter about which she wanted more information. Each evening, I presented this list to the gallery. The next day, Airl received a large stack of books, magazines, articles, and so forth. She would study all of these during the night while I slept. This pattern repeated every day during the remainder of the time I spent with her. The subject matter of my next interview or lesson from Airl continued with brief history of Earth, our solar system, and nearby space from the perspective of the Domain.
Ooh, yeah, let's get into it.
So now we're back into the transcript. Roswell, Army Airfield, 509th Bomb Group. Subject, alien interview. 25th of July, 1947. First session.
Ominous. Dum, dum, dum. Dum, dum, dum.
Before you can understand the subject of history, you must first understand the subject of time. Time is simply an arbitrary measurement of the motion of objects through space. Space is not linear. Space is determined by the point of view of an ISB when viewing an object. The distance between an ISB and the object being viewed is called space. Objects or energy masses in space do not necessarily move in a linear fashion. In this universe, objects tend to move randomly or in a curving or cyclical pattern, or as determined by agreed upon rules.
By the ISBs.
Yeah.
By the collective consciousness who are experiencing that space. So like if ISBs are everywhere and physics is determined almost by the consciousness who are experiencing it in any given region, maybe they're able to change the physics or like dynamic of interactions between matter in those areas, right?
Interesting, yeah. History is not only a linear record of events, as many authors of Earth history books imply, because it is not a string that can be stretched out and marked like a measuring tool. History is a subjective observation from the movement of objects through space, recorded from the point of view of a survivor rather than of those who succumbed. Events occur interactively and concurrently, just as the biological body has a heart that pumps blood while the lungs provide oxygen to the cells, which reproduce using energy from the sun and chemicals from plants. At the same time, as the liver strains toxic waste from the blood and eliminates them through the bladder and the bowels. All of these interactions are concurrent and simultaneous.
Yeah.
Although time runs consecutively, events do not happen in an independent linear stream. In order to view and understand the history of reality of the past, one must view all events as part of an interactive whole. Time can also be sensed as a vibration which is uniform throughout the entire physical universe. Airl explained that ISBs have been around since before the beginning of the universe.
Wow. Okay.
The reason they are called immortal is because a spirit is not born and cannot die, but exists in a personally postulated perception of is-will be. She was careful to explain that every spirit is not the same. Each is completely unique in identity, power, awareness, and ability. That difference between an ISB like Airl and most of the ISBs inhabiting bodies on Earth is that Airl can enter and depart from her doll at will. She can perceive at selective depths through matter. Airl and other officers of the domain can communicate telepathically, since an ISB is not a physical universe entity. It has no location in space or time. An ISB is literally immaterial. They can span great distances of space instantly.
Yeah, so that makes me think of like if we are all ISBs, us and Airl alike, right? The only real difference is that they are given different permissions, and it reminds me of like a computer program and having like an admin on top of like the just the users. So like in certain areas where the ISBs choose to live and be subjected to the collective consciousness of a certain region, the ISBs that don't have that protocol are like the admin, and they can come in and out, and they have no restrictions on their location or their, you know, general like guidelines of like how they're able to interact.
Yeah. Well, it makes me wonder like what actually is time to them. If you are outside of your doll
There's
body,
no time, it seems like.
then what is time?
Well, the way she described time as being like, and how we've kind of heard about
Time
it
is a way that we describe the movement of objects through space.
exactly. So
But
if you're immaterial,
if you're outside of your doll body and you're immaterial, you
there
would
is
think
no
though,
time.
yeah, but you would think still that you can still interact with other ISBs, right? In that immaterial space. And if you do, then that is two quote unquote objects interacting. And if
Quantumly, maybe.
if you interact with one ISB and then interact with another ISB from your perspective, then you sort of need time to make sense of that.
Well, maybe it's more of like a quantum
Yeah.
thing where they're interacting on a quantum level. So yes, it is physical matter interacting, but it's on a scale that's outside of the normal, what we would perceive as time.
You know what's interesting about that is
It's still time, but it's in a different. It's in like a different.
it's a different time.
Complete different type of time and perspective of it.
There's recently a paper that just dropped, and I've watched a couple different YouTube takes on it. Sabine Hassenfelder, like, this is crap. And then, what's his name? Is his name Anton
Petrov, yeah.
He's like, this is pretty interesting, but it's a paper proposing that there's 3 dimensions of time, not just 3 dimensions of space.
I could see it.
Yeah.
I could definitely see it. I mean, we've heard about multiple dimensions before outside of our 4 dimensions that we can perceive.
Yeah, it's just hard to understand, like, what do you mean by another dimension of time? Like, in what way can things change?
I think time is macro. It's whatever we experience, and then there's micro, like quantum time.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they said in the paper.
There's like a macro time where the scales of things happen so slowly and so like that the time scale is so drawn out. Like the idea of like going like, because if you're close to a mass like a black hole, everything's so stretched out that the time that you are there is so slow, but the time everywhere else is moving so much more rapidly. And like when you go down to quantum, everything is so close together and moving so rapidly that the time speeds up so much faster for you, when outside of it everything is going so much slower.
Yeah.
That's kind of like intuitive to me. Like it kind of seems like it just makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, like everything would be a blur unless you were operating at timescales that were so rapid that you could perceive quantum events.
Right. The ability to perceive those events is a different thing. Like that's a different, sense. Really, like you could be operating on a quantum timescale and not even understand the majority of the things that are happening around you. But time, the passage of time, might be something that you could relatively understand.
So, are we supporting the endgame time travel theory? That you can go quantum to travel through time and pop out somewhere else?
I think that's certainly possible. I think that the time scale on that, like you could move really rapidly through time and like come up with a different answer for what's going to happen. And on the macro, right, you could see like a Galactus or like a, one of those characters that are like, universal, like literal universal, not just like universal between different movies, but like massive in scale, and they are seeing everything play out so much slower for them.
Yeah.
but they still see it. They still see all the way down to the quantum if they have the ability to. But they're seeing all of those things play out, and it's happening on such a different time scale that they're able to play the chess game.
Yeah.
So they all have their different like nuances and their different abilities to interact in certain ways. Like,
but the other point she made in here is that time is not a sequence of events you can unravel into a string and mark like a measuring tape, right?
So they're not different.
So it's not that
all.
there is an objective measure of time either.
Right. Right.
And that's in line with how relativity works.
So each ISB would be experiencing it for themselves, is what you're saying.
Right. There is for you, there is only your time.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own perspective of time, and not all perspectives of time will line up.
Right.
And that's because of the speed of causality and relativity. You can watch some videos on that where
that maybe this ISB Airl, the experience of what she's going through in this interview is a past experience. Like it's a memory. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's already happened for her enough, like in the timeline of things, but she's able to pop in and out of different times that she's able to like experience it as a memory instead of like something that's happening in the now.
Interesting.
So cool to think about. I love this stuff. I love talking about time.
All right, let's get back into it.
Okay, let's go.
They can experience sensations more intensely than a biological body without the use of physical sensory mechanisms. An ISB can exclude pain from their perception. Airl can also remember her identity, so to speak, all the way back into the dim mists of time for trillions of years. Can you imagine?
But it doesn't say forward in time.
Interesting. She says that the existing collection of suns in this immediate vicinity of the universe have been burning for the last 200 trillion years. Whew. That's orders of magnitude off from our theories of the Big Bang.
Yeah.
The age of the physical universe is nearly infinitely old, but probably at least 4 quadrillion years since its earliest beginnings.
So arbitrarily long.
Yeah. Time is a difficult factor to measure as it depends on the subjective memory of ISBs. Excuse me. And there has been no uniform record of events throughout the physical universe since it began. As on Earth, there are many different time measurement systems defined by various cultures, which use cycles of motion and points of origin to establish age and duration.
And geography. We develop our time system based on geography now.
Well, we use it based on like the sun orbiting, or Earth orbiting the sun, or the Earth turning,
which
right? So the sun's path through the sky, yeah.
Like technically, we could all be on one time system and just have different meanings for what each time means.
And some cultures use the sun's movements and the moon's movements and have multiple calendars running next to each other.
Like imagine if like we traveled the world, like you go to from where we are here in the west coast of North America, and we traveled to the opposite end of the world, and it was the exact same time. It's just their meaning of that time was different.
Right.
So 2 p.m. here,
their clock will read 12 hours different, right?
But it would, like, you know, however long it took you to get there, it's what time it is. Like,
right.
You know, you leave at 2 p.m. and then you get there, it's 2 a.m. But their 2 a.m. looks a lot different than your 2 a.m. Their 2 a.m. is like bright and sunny.
Right.
You know?
Right.
The interesting way to live.
The physical universe itself is formed from the convergence and amalgamation of many other individual universes, each one of which was created by an ISB or group of ISBs. The collision of these illusory universes commingled and coalesced and were solidified to form a mutually created universe. Because it is agreed that energy and forms can be created but not destroyed, this creative process has continued to form an ever-expanding universe of nearly infinite physical proportions.
Wow.
Before the formation of the physical universe, there was a vast period during which universes were not solid, but wholly illusory. You might say that the universe was a universe of magical illusions which were made to appear and vanish at the will of the magician.
Dude.
In every case, the magician was one or more Isbies. Many Isbies on Earth can still recall vague images from that period, tales of magic, sorcery, and enchantment. Fairy tales of mythology speak of such things, although in very crude terms.
Yeah, dude, that reminds me of like Secret History of the World and like the magic stuff we talked about. Like this, like, yeah, and even now, even today, it seems like, especially because now we're so connected globally, you can see these different pockets where people seem to be living in different universes. Literally. Like their perception of the world is completely different of what this group of people's perception of the world is. And then all these other people who seem to be moderates or, fence sitters or whatever, their universe is different. It literally seems like there are multiple universes all living out their life on the same planet at the same time. And now we have a glimpse of it because we have the internet where we can all communicate.
Let me finish this next paragraph because I want to keep on this topic. Each Isbee entered into the physical universe when they lost their own home universe. When they lost their own home universe.
Okay.
That is, when an Isbee's home universe was overwhelmed by the physical universe, or when the Isbee joined with other Isbees to create or conquer the physical universe. So this is how, like, the images this brings into my mind is this idea of like a dreaming. This idea of like a time when consciousnesses, Isbees, like essentially floated around in space, creating their own universe through like the dream state, right? Like just pure creation of your own world through your own imagination, and anything goes. But that there's this process of Isbees
collectiveness
coming together and wanting to spend their existence together, and so therefore creating a co-dreaming, a co-mingling where they agree on the dream they're going to have. And then as that continues to expand, more and more Isbees are joining into the same vision, the same dream, the same created universe, with and all contributing to the rule set of how the physics of it works.
And then eventually getting to inhabit
and that can be described as the universe expanding or getting more and more dense, as like Secret History would say.
And the whole magic idea of it too, like these Isbees had abilities and powers and abilities to create and destroy and to reshape and to reform because when there's a cycle, you want to refresh it because you didn't get what you wanted on that first cycle. They could be like, oh, clearly we weren't thinking about that, so let's restart it.
Well, also, like, if you're floating in space having your own universe of your own creation, and there's nothing around you to overwhelm your consciousness's thoughts about how you want this or that to go, then literally at the moment you think of something, it is real, right? But the more and more Isbees that you are creating reality with,
the more muddied it gets.
the less power your individual consciousness has to rewrite the universe as a whole.
Yeah.
Maybe it has more, like, it still seems to retain some sort of power to rewrite your own life, like in that, and you know, at the very least it survives in the form of free will, right? But it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, especially if you like the track you're going on there, like the fractal nature of it, right? Starts out massive and it becomes smaller and smaller, just like that tree of life we just saw there, right?
Yeah.
And as things kind of like coalesced more and more together, there's so many influences on what it is that this collective dream is going to be about, that your individual, you know, view doesn't change much globally, but it will change a lot locally if you allow it to, if you fully believe and you know, trust that it can. And so, like, if you take that down to being a human being, or be as a human being, like, you have the power to change what it is around you, but you don't necessarily have the power you might think globally.
But there are rules you have to follow to make that work, right?
Exactly. You can't just assume that it's going to happen. You still have to like practice the old magic, like the idea of like fully focusing your intent on a thing, and then you chant or you do some sort of like rhythmic thing that
to
like
put
helps
out the
you
communication to all the Isbies around you to help to help you co-create what you want.
Exactly.
Created, right.
And in a sense, a lot of those Isbies will be inclined to do so. It's just you have to open their minds. So like if there was a collective shift, like this idea of like a collective consciousness shifting, is when you can reach out to enough, or enough Isbies are open to the idea of like this new dream, this new idea being projected into the space, then it could change drastically the state of what it is you're experiencing in this collective consciousness.
Yeah.
It's cool to think about.
Yeah, this is a great chapter.
Very synchronicity.
Right?
Very synchronist. How do you say that?
Synchronistic.
Synchronized.
We're ready for a break.
You ready to take a break, and then we'll pop into for the next chapter here? Or?
Well, we're still on the same chapter,
Okay.
but
All right.
yeah.
We'll get into the next part here after this break. Enjoy some music, and we'll see you on the other side. Stevie Nader.
Was pulling away from us all, but you begged it to stay, sent out calls for the warming sun rays from the hall to the open doorway. I can still recall the feeling from the fall when I knew time was all I had to make me understand the whole truth. I can still recall the feeling from the fall when I knew life was still frozen over and lost winter kill from the damaging frost of your guilt, tied inside you and taught lovers will offer to you for now. I can still recall the feeling from the fall when I knew time was all I had to make me understand the whole truth. I can still recall the feeling from the fall when I knew. And through the fog, I saw what really was. Nothing more than broken pieces of you in my hand. I can still recall the feeling from the fall when I
Welcome back to segment number 3, and probably the final one for this episode.
Yes, we've been going a little bit over on these, so yeah, we'll do one final segment here.
Yeah,
push through some more of this. And I'll just say, looking through this picture here on this monitor as I'm listening to you go through this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just like hard to believe that we're the only ones. This is just a snippet of the night sky.
A tiny little sliver. Yeah.
It's hard to think that we're alone out here.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
All right, let's get back into it.
All right. So, on Earth, the ability to determine when an ISB entered the physical universe is difficult for 2 reasons. 1, the memory of ISBs on Earth has been erased.
Okay.
And 2, the ISB's arrival or invasion into the physical universe took place at different times, some 60 trillion years ago, and others only 3 trillion. Every once in a short while, a few million years, an area or planet will be taken over by another group of ISBs entering into the area. Sometimes they will capture other ISBs as slaves. They will be forced to inhabit bodies to perform menial or manual work, especially mining mineral ores or heavy gravity planets such as Earth. Airl says that she has been a member of the Domain Expeditionary Force for more than 625 million years when she became a pilot for a biological survey mission, which included occasional visits to Earth. She can remember her entire career there, and for a very long time before that. She told me that Earth scientists do not have an accurate measuring system to gauge the age of matter. They assume that because certain types of materials seem to deteriorate rather quickly, such as organic or carbon-based matter, that there is a deterioration of matter. It is not accurate to measure the age of stone based on the measurement of the age of wood or bone. This is a fundamental error. Factually, matter does not deteriorate. It cannot be destroyed. Matter may be altered in form, but it's never truly destroyed.
Yeah.
The Domain has conducted periodic survey of the galaxies in this sector of the universe since it developed space travel technologies about 80 trillion years ago. A review of changes in the complexion of Earth revealed that mountain ranges rise and fall, continents change location, and poles of the planet shift. Ice caps come and go, oceans appear and disappear, rivers, valleys, and canyons change. In all cases, the matter is the same. It is always the same sand. Every form and substance is made of the same basic material, which never deteriorates.
Just off the bat, what I'm thinking of is like what we were talking about before, and how the idea of their time scale being different from ours, right? 80 trillion years might be arbitrary. Like all of our existence could have happened in that much time for them. Because if they're seeing things happen on that time scale, what if it's not actually happening on that time scale for us?
But I think now that she's done her reading and stuff,
you think that she would be able to
when she uses the word year, she's using the word year the way we use the word year to denote the amount of time it takes for the Earth to go around the sun. Right, and because it's basically the largest unit that we use.
Yeah, right.
She's using it.
Okay.
That's my read on it, but
yeah, I'm just curious if
she seems to be saying that we're basically off about how old we think the universe is by
how old we are.
And how old everything is by a great margin,
right? Because of some reason, because there's some error that's happening, or some collective agreement that's happening, right?
Yeah. So maybe she's saying, because we do a lot of aging stuff based off of like the deterioration of isotopes and radioactive decay and stuff like that. But
that's not as accurate as they make it out to be.
Right.
As we make it out to be.
Well, it could be that there's ways that those decaying isotopes can essentially get re-energized over time or something, maybe.
And be reused and yeah. Okay.
So back to Matilda's personal notes.
Okay.
She says, and this is all in parentheses, she says, I cannot even begin to imagine how advanced a civilization may have become technically and mentally after trillions of years. Just think of how advanced our own country has become compared to only 150 years ago. Only a few generations ago, transportation was on foot, horseback, or boat. Reading was done by candlelight. Heating and cooking were done over a fireplace. There wasn't any indoor plumbing.
So true.
Yeah.
So how quickly these things have changed.
Yeah. So back to the official transcript. Airl described the abilities of an ISB officer of the domain to me, and she demonstrated one to me when she contacted telepathically a communications officer of the domain who is stationed in the asteroid belt.
Do you want to go to full screen of us?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. We love looking at Stevie, though.
Yeah.
The asteroid belt is composed of thousands of broken up pieces of a planet that once existed between Mars and Jupiter. It serves as a good low gravity jumping off point for incoming spacecraft traveling toward the center of our galaxy. She requested that this officer consult information stored in the files of the domain concerning the history of Earth. She asked the communications officer to feed this information to Airl. The communications officer immediately complied with the request. Based on the information stored in the files of the domain, Airl was able to give me a brief overview of the history lesson. A brief overview or history lesson. This is what Airl told me that the domain had observed about the history of Earth. She told me that the domain expeditionary force first entered into the Milky Way galaxy very recently, only about 10,000 years ago. Their first action was to conquer the home planet of the old empire. This is not the official name, but a nickname given to the conquered civilization by the domain forces that served as the seat of the central government for this galaxy and other adjoining regions of space. These planets are located in the star system in the tail of the Big Dipper constellation.
Oh, wow.
She did not mention which stars exactly.
I'll have to look that up later.
Yeah. About 1,500 years later, the domain began the installation of bases of their own forces along the path of the invasion, which leads towards the center of the galaxy and beyond. About 8,200 years ago, the domain forces set up a base on Earth in the Himalaya Mountains near the border of modern-day Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Which is where we saw that freaking orb or that video earlier.
What the heck?
That's crazy.
That's a pretty crazy quote. What the heck?
That's literally right there on the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan.
What the heck? This was a base for a battalion of the Domain Expeditionary Force, which included about 3,000 members. Dude, that's so trippy. They set up a base under or inside the top of a mountain. The mountaintop was drilled into and made hollow to create an area large enough to house the ships and personnel of the force.
The ships.
Yep. An electronic illusion of the mountaintop was then created to hide the base by projecting a false image from inside the mountain against a force screen. The ships could then enter and exit through the force screen, yet remain unseen by Homo sapiens.
Whoa. It's like Wakanda.
Yeah, exactly. Shortly after they settled there, the base was surprised by an attack from a remnant of the military forces of the old empire. Unbeknownst to the domain, a hidden underground base on Mars operated by the old empire had existed for a very long time. The domain base was wiped out by a military attack from the Mars base, and the ISBs of the domain expeditionary force were captured.
Interesting.
You can imagine that the domain was very upset about losing such a large force of officers and crew, so they sent other crews to Earth to look for them. Those crews were also attacked. The captured ISBs from the domain forces were handled in the same fashion as all the other ISBs who have been sent to Earth. They were each given amnesia, had their memories replaced with false pictures and hypnotic commands, and sent to Earth to inhabit biological bodies.
Wow.
They are still part of the human population today. After a few persistent and extensive investigation into the loss of their crew, the domain discovered that Old Empire has been operating a very extensive and very carefully hidden base of operations in this part of the galaxy for millions of years. No one knows exactly how long. Eventually, the spacecraft of the Old Empire forces and the domain engaged in each other in open combat in the space of the solar system. According to Airl, there was a running battle between the Old Empire forces and the domain until about 1235 AD, when the domain forces finally destroyed the last of the spacecraft of the Old Empire force in this area.
Also when religion started taking root.
1235 AD, though.
Yeah. Okay.
So the Christianity already existed for about 1,200 years.
I was thinking BC.
About 1,000 years later, the Old Empire base was discovered by ancient in this. Yeah, some of these are not worded properly, which goes to show that maybe this is just a direct publishing of someone's typewriter notes.
Yeah.
About 1,000 years later, the Old Empire base was discovered by accident. Me reading. In the spring of 1914 AD. The discovery was made when the body of Archduke of Austria was taken over by an officer of the Domain Expeditionary Force. This officer, who was stationed in the asteroid belt, was sent to Earth on a routine mission to gather reconnaissance. The purpose of this takeover was to use the body as a disguise through which to infiltrate the human society in order to gather information about current events on Earth. The officer, as an ISB, having greater power than the being inhabiting the body of the Archduke, simply pushed that being out and took over control of the body.
Dude, so they can just take over people's bodies too?
Yeah, so it's like possession, basically.
Yeah.
Or like, what was the term? It's not reincarnation. It was like...
Oh, yeah.
There was some other term for it. Remember the one case we read when we were in that reincarnation phase? And
it wasn't like extra carnation or like anything like that.
I forget the term now. But yeah, there was a person who grew up to like 20 years old or something before starting to exhibit a whole new personality and a whole new set of memories.
Yep. And could verify said memories based off like historical events and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, also this is where like this gets like the skeptic stuff in my head going. This is where it sounds more like a sci-fi writer writing something exciting, because like
it starts to like
what
change
are the chances,
events into like to make sense into the story.
Like if you decide to go force incarnate into someone who's already living to gather intel, what are the chances that the person you chose is the exact person who got killed to start World War One?
Yeah, that's kind of far-fetched.
Yeah,
I could see it being like a series of events that led you to pick that person. But if it's just like, oh, like I just happened to pick this person and it happened to be this, important figure in the world at this time. Yeah, that's kind of...
However, this officer did not realize how much the Habsburgs were hated by feuding factions in the country, so he was caught off guard when the body of the Archduke was assassinated by a Bosnian student. The officer, or Isby, was suddenly knocked out of the body when it was shot by the assassin. Disoriented, the Isby inadvertently penetrated one of the amnesia force screens and was captured.
Interesting. But isn't the being that they inhabited also an Isby? So what happened, right? Like, so like, is there like I'm curious, obviously they don't elaborate yet, but like, is that interaction, what would that interaction be like from Isby to Isby?
I don't know.
Of taking over their body.
I mean, the same way Airl told Matilda, just be out of your body. Probably do something different and then just hop in there.
Yeah. Say you are not
and then
this.
You try and come back. You're like, nope, I'm stronger than you. In my body now.
Yeah. Okay.
Eventually, the domain discovered that a wide area of space is monitored by an electronic force field, which controls all Isbys in this end of the galaxy, including Earth. The electronic force screen is designed to detect Isbys and prevent them from leaving the area. If an Isby attempts to penetrate the force screen, it captures them in a kind of electronic net. The result is that the captured Isby is subjected to a very severe brainwashing treatment, which erases the memory of the Isby. This process uses a tremendous electrical shock, just like the Earth psychiatrists use electrical shock therapy to erase the memory and personality of a patient and to make them more cooperative. On Earth, this therapy in quotes, uses only a few hundred volts of electricity. However, the electrical voltage used by the Old Empire operation against Isbys is on the order of magnitude of billions of volts.
Whoa.
This tremendous shock completely wipes out the memory of the Isby. The memory erasure is not just for one life or one body. It wipes out all of the accumulated experience of a nearly infinite past, as well as the identity of the Isby.
It almost reminds me of like Men in Black, where they use the neuralizer to like wipe the memory, and then you can create a new, right? So like, if these Isbys, as part of the domain, go around and conquer, they know that there's other Isbys with abilities and stuff around. So they use this technology to wipe the memories of their most recent incarnations in order to like, hey, like refold back into this, into the domain, so that we can conquer you. So that wipes their grip on the material world of that area.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The shock is intended to make it impossible for the Isby to remember who they are, where they came from, their knowledge or skills, their memory of the past, the ability to function as a spiritual entity. They are overwhelmed into becoming a mindless, robotic non-entity. After the shock, a series of post-hypnotic suggestions are used to install false memories and a false time orientation in each Isby. This includes the command to return to the base after the body dies, so that the same kind of shock and hypnosis can be done again and again and again forever.
Wow.
The hypnotic command also tells the patient to forget to remember. What the domain learned from the experience of this officer is that the Old Empire has been using Earth as a prison planet for a very long time. Exactly how long is unknown, perhaps millions of years.
Jeez.
So when the body of an Isby dies, they depart from the body. They are directed by the force screen. They are captured and ordered by hypnotic command to return to the light.
Sounds like death, yeah.
The idea of heaven and the afterlife are part of the hypnotic suggestion, a part of the treachery that makes the whole mechanism work.
Whoa.
After the ISB has been shocked and hypnotized to erase the memory of the life just lived, the ISB is immediately commanded hypnotically to report back to Earth as though they were on a secret mission to inhabit a new body. Each ISB is told that they have a special purpose for being on Earth. But of course, there is no purpose for being in a prison, at least not for the prisoner.
Yeah.
So, this is where it gets kind of juicy. So, like, the idea is that Earth is this prison planet, and that when we die, the whole thing that we see, where, like, we see a light and it's like, go to the light. Going to the light is going back to the station that wipes your memory and forces you to reincarnate.
Yeah.
So, don't go to the light, people. Don't go to the light.
At least as far
I don't know what you're supposed to do instead, but don't go to the light.
Yeah.
Unless you want to live all over again and forget everything.
Well, I mean, who's to say that that's not the purpose, right? Because they say that the domain portrays themselves as being around since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. And they have this kind of like cosmic, like, purpose that they're spreading. And maybe that's part of the entire thing, is like to experience what it is to be an ISB. Clearly there are different factions or different ways to experience what it is to be an ISB, or to be a material physical being experiencing itself in a physical world. But maybe there is a purpose to it, and there is an end to it, right? Like maybe the purpose of being reincarnated is because you haven't found what it is you are looking for. Yeah. It's like restarting a game that you failed over and over again in order to finally succeed.
This is where my skepticism starts to rise in this story, is because, I mean, I think it's a cool idea that, like, it's a cool sci-fi story idea that Earth is this prison planet, right? But in order for this sort of connotation of the way things are to be valid, because Airl's saying that all ISBs are eternal and they have always existed. They can't be born and they can't be destroyed. Mm-hmm. Right? And that means every single one of us, right?
Yeah.
And we have the experience of being born as these humans, and we have this, you know, if you're into spiritual stuff, this experience of some sort of spiritual thing that you are that continues after you die.
Yeah.
Now, let's say that's true, and so you die and you continue. Well, let's zoom out a bit and let's go to another planet in some random star system that's not Earth, that's not a prison planet.
It's not controlled by the domain or
that's
whatever.
Not controlled by the domain or the old empire, and life starts evolving there. And now there's creatures, and those creatures become hominids, and some sort of human-like entity evolves.
Yeah.
What is it? Just ISBs deciding to incarnate that are inside those, and that for those versions of quote-unquote alternate humans, are those born remembering their whole entire history?
At first, maybe, yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's some sort of like Adam and Eve type situation where there's like it has to start with two, right? It has to start with two people who agree to inhabit and agree upon certain like rules of the physical world in order to start something. It has to start with at least two. And then it snowballs into...
Well, right, but what I'm saying is, like, is the non-prison planet version of humans...
Like fully capable and fully aware of their abilities.
If this wasn't a prison planet, what would it look like? Would it look like... Because it seems to me like there's... Like, biology doing biology is coming up from chemical processes, right? And at some point it gives rise to life. But I feel like every single form of life, whether it's a single-celled organism or a simple animal or a human, is inhabited by some sort of consciousness. Sure. That consciousness is probably an ISB.
Right.
And so Isbies must have reasons they want to inhabit life, right? Or are some of them non-inhabited and are basically automatons? And then if on the version of Earth that isn't a prison planet, does it mean that like you're born and like right from childhood throughout your life that you remember your entire cosmic existence? And so therefore, I guess your civilization is just way more advanced from the get-go.
Well, you got to think about it too.
Like from the moment you have opposable thumbs, now you can basically...
Well, if you got to think about like all of life being Isbies, and if all of life can be inhabited by these Isbies, we are not the only life on this planet. There's plants and animals and all these different existence and iterations of life. So if there is a collective consciousness and we are only a small percentage of the entirety of the life on the planet that is controlling this collective consciousness, we are way outnumbered when it comes to, so like,
by
you
ants.
can, exactly. Like we are way outnumbered in that humans don't necessarily have enough collective consciousness to control the outcome in the end.
Yeah.
And that plants and animals and the natural all the other life on the earth that is working within harmony of each other. And maybe they do have some sort of like primal connection to their abilities as an Isbie without the abilities of a human, but that doesn't mean they're unable to do anything. Sure. or have a larger role in the collective consciousness.
Yeah, but if you can remember, like if the default is that you just remember all your past lives, you remember your entire spiritual history, and it's only something weird happening here because it's a prison planet that makes it so that we don't remember those things.
What if by prison planet they mean humans are prisoners and not the other creatures or inhabitants of the planet?
Let's keep going because they'll elucidate more about that.
All right.
Yeah, I like the going to the light stuff though.
Yeah, that metaphor.
All right, so here's the prison part being elucidated a little more. Any undesirable Isbie who are sentenced to Earth were classified as untouchable by the Old Empire. This included anyone that the Old Empire judged to be criminals who were too vicious to be reformed or subdued, as well as other criminals such as sexual perverts or beings unwilling to do any productive work. We got a lot of those on this planet.
Yeah.
An untouchable classification of Isbies also includes a wide variety of political prisoners. This includes Isbies who are considered to be non-compliant free thinkers or revolutionaries who make trouble for the governments of the various planets of the Old Empire. Of course, anyone with previous military record against the Old Empire is also shipped off to Earth. A list of untouchables includes artists, painters, singers, musicians, writers, actors, and performers of every kind. For this reason, Earth has more artists per capita than any other planet in the Old Empire. Untouchables also include intellectuals, inventors, and geniuses in almost every field. Since everything in the Old Empire considered valuable has long since been invented or created over the last few trillion years, they have no further use of such beings. This includes skilled managers also, which are not needed in a society of obedient robotic citizens. Anyone who is not willing or able to submit to the mindless economic, political, and religious servitude as a tax-paying worker in the class system of the Old Empire are untouchable and sentenced to receive memory wipeout and permanent imprisonment on Earth. The net result is that an ISB is unable to escape because they can't remember who they are, where they came from, where they are. They have been hypnotized to think they are someone, something, sometime, and somewhere other than where they really are. The domain officer who was assassinated while in the body of the Archduke of Austria was likewise captured by the old Empire force. Because this particular officer was a high-powered ISB compared to most, he was taken to a secret old Empire base under the surface of the planet Mars. They put him into a special electronic prison cell and held him there. Unfortunately, this domain officer was able to escape from the underground base after 27 years in captivity. When he escaped from the old Empire base, he returned immediately to his own base in the asteroid belt. His commanding officer ordered that a battle cruiser be dispatched to the coordinates of the base provided by this officer and to destroy that base completely. This old Empire base was located a few hundred miles north of the equator on Mars in the Cydonia region.
Wow.
Although the military base of the old Empire was destroyed, unfortunately, much of the vast machinery of the ISB force screens, the electroshock, amnesia, hypnosis machinery, continues to function in other undiscovered locations right up to the present moment. The main base or control center for this mind control prison operation has never been found. So the influence of this base or bases are still in effect.
So they're looking for it.
Yeah, so the domain in their expansion into this galaxy is basically overthrowing the old empire that was here and trying to shut down their prison system and
maybe
whatnot,
next
but they
year
haven't found the way that it works. So yeah,
maybe the prediction of next year will be them discovering it and shutting down this mind control operation.
Dude,
and it'll free our minds to the possibilities of being an ISB.
Everyone just starts having memories of being a freaking galactic citizen.
Be intense. Holy. How much we got left on this one?
Just like a page here.
Okay, cool. Let's finish it up.
The domain has observed that since the old Empire space forces were destroyed, there is no one left to actively prevent other planetary systems from bringing their own untouchable ISBs to Earth from all over the galaxy and from other galaxies nearby. Therefore, Earth has become a universal dumping ground for this entire region of space. This, in part, explains the very unusual mix of races, cultures, language, moral codes, religions, and political influences among the ISB population on Earth. The number and variety of heterogeneous societies of Earth are extremely unusual in a normal planet. Most Sun Type 12 Class 7 planets are inhabited by only one humanoid body type or race, if any.
Ooh. Interesting.
In addition, most of the ancient civilizations of Earth and many of the events of Earth have been heavily influenced by the hidden hypnotic operation of the old Empire base. So far, no one has figured out exactly where or how this operation is run, or by whom, because it is heavily protected by the screens and traps. Furthermore, there has been no operation undertaken to seek out, discover, and destroy the vast and ancient network of electronics machinery that create the ISB force screens at this end of the galaxy. Until this has been done, we are not able to prevent or interrupt the electric shock operation, hypnosis, and remote thought control of the old Empire prison planet.
Even by conquering the old Empire in their Mars base.
Well, they said one of the first things they did when they came into the galaxy was go straight to like the capital planet of the old Empire,
which was Mars, right?
No, it was like a different planet. Yeah.
Oh, right, within the galaxy.
Within the galaxy, yeah, that was the one they said that was the tail of the
that's right,
Big Dipper.
Mm-hmm.
One last little paragraph here, and then we're done. Of course, all of the crew members of the Domain Expeditionary Force now remain aware of this phenomena at all times while operating in the solar system space so as to prevent detection and capture by the old Empire traps. And that's chapter 7.
Wow.
So this is where the whole thing starts expanding, and this is where...
And it keeps going for a while, I'm assuming, right? How far are we into it at all?
We're about a third of the way through the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got a good amount of storytelling going.
We got plenty to go.
Awesome.
But this is where it really starts to go into the sci-fi realm, right? And this is where like arguments that this is really just a clever sci-fi novel by this author start to become more credible, right?
Okay. I love me some sci-fi though.
How can we know, right?
Oh yeah, of
and
course.
Based on the descriptions of a lot of stuff, and there's some things I would have questions about too. Like, for instance, one of the things that doesn't fully add up to me is like we as humans, like with the CIA, we have this whole like remote viewing program. And I have apparently been able to send people millions of years ago on Mars to see what was happening and remote view the moon and stuff. So how come these ISBs can't just like remote view the locations of these places?
Well, maybe because they're based on memory, right? Like if you have no memory of being there, then you can't find exact locations because we're talking about like vast distances to be covered.
Dang, that was a good answer. Oh, we've been on the Stevie full screen for a while now.
I thought we'd been on this, no?
I just found us on this, but
okay.
I don't know how long we've been there.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching Stevie Nader this whole time. But yeah, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us this week. It's been very mind-opening and mind-bending, and we'll continue some more next week probably. And
don't go to the light, people.
Not yet. Not yet. You're not done here.
It's a trick.
You're not done. You're an ISB.
No, even when you are done, don't go to the light. The light's a trick.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. If you guys want to find us and watch this whole video podcast and watch Stevie Nader on the screen for this entire time, I'm just kidding. But go to YouTube and Rumble, like, subscribe, comment. That would be very helpful, and we'll very much appreciate that. Helps get other people involved. And we had 4 comments today based off our G-Man interview. Mm-hmm. So we'd love to do more stuff like that. So appreciate the support. If you guys want to listen to us on any podcast platform, like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, any of the options that they give you. It's all helpful to get us out there and spread the word.
Even just like the thumbs up on YouTube helps a lot.
Super free. There's no need to do anything other than that. If you guys just want to give us a little bit of support. You guys can find everything on our website at dualitycheck.net. You guys can email us at host@dualitycheck.net, just like Greg does, just like you will in the future.
Just like Moose Canoe.
Yeah, just like Moose Canoe did. AKA. He's got a lot of AKAs.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, appreciate y'all hanging out with us this week. If you guys want to find out when our next episode, we usually drop them on Tuesdays, but follow us on Instagram and YouTube, or on Instagram and Facebook to find out when our episodes are going live. So talk to y'all next week.
All right, we'll see you. Adios.